You are not going to believe the shocking results that happened when I ran a $200 eBay promoted stores advertising campaign. Now, this is a follow-up to a video that I did recently in which I showed the amazing results that happened when I ran an eBay promoted listings general advertising campaign for the first time. And I'm going to do a follow-up to that video here a little bit later because of some important announcements that came out after I made that video about changes that are coming to eBay's promoted listing. So even if you don't have an eBay store, which is what the promoted store campaign is I'm going to talk about in a moment, if you plan or think of doing any type of promoted listings, we're going to cover all the different types. It'll be a good overview video as well, so you probably get something out of it. So let's start with eBay's promoted stores. So this is, as it sounds, they are promoting your store. If you have an eBay store, it's not promoting individual listings, although depending on the type of ad that they show, they may show some examples of items that you have in your store. Sometimes they won't, sometimes they'll just show a picture of your company logo, for example. But it's designed to get people to look at your overall store and hopefully purchase some items from there. So the reason that I even tried this to begin with is that eBay sent me this email. So check this out. It says, "Don't miss your discount. Get $200 off promoted stores." And then you can see it says, "Don't wait," big bold letters, "claim $200 off now. Take advantage of $200 off promoted stores. Hurry, reach more buyers, and boost your sales with this limited time offer. Offer ends 12/31/25. So I figured, all right, eBay's going to cover the $200. This will be an experiment. I'll try it out. I'll run it, and then I'll let the viewers know how this works out, because I'm not sure if I just got this sent to me because I recently tried the general promoted listing strategy for the first time, or if this is something that's getting sent out to everybody to try. But it's a limited time offer. Figure some people might, not take advantage of it and then maybe thinking of spending some money on it down the road. So you're definitely going to want to stay tuned to this. So, okay, so now let's take a look at the next screenshot here. So now you could see it says, and this is somewhere on their webpage, it said, "Update your promoted store campaign. Promoted stores, $200 credit. Sellers who promoted their store saw a 60% increase in store visits on average." Now, keep in mind what it's saying there, okay? You're getting an increase in store visits. It's not saying you're getting an increase in sales. An increase in visits means nothing if people don't buy. That's like saying to a brick and mortar store, "Hey, we're going to send we're going to send 60% more people through your store, through your brick and mortar store. But if they all walk out and don't buy anything, what does that matter? It doesn't matter." So, all right, let's keep reading here. So it says, "Promoted stores can help you access ad placements in high visibility locations like the top of the search page and the home page." So, okay, so that sounds enticing, right? So, okay, we'll try it out. That's what I figured. So $200 is what they say they're going to cover, right? So, okay, so you could set an ad limit, a daily ad limit. And this is the first thing should be a huge warning sign for people. What I put in was $10 for the daily ad limit. But when I looked at the fine print, and I don't think everyone's going to look at the fine print and then they might come back like 20, 30 days later and be shocked at how much they now have to pay. Look at this. This is really sneaky, okay? It says, "How does the target daily budget work? Your target daily budget is the average daily amount you're comfortable spending throughout the calendar month. Okay, that sounds great, right? But check this part out. The amount you spend per month won't exceed 30.4 times your set target daily budget unless you adjust it during the month. On any given day, you could spend less than your target daily budget. Okay, that sounds all right. Or up to double the highest target daily budget set on that day. That makes no sense. You know, if you're setting a budget of $10, I think that you're going to expect that it doesn't go over the 10. So when I started this campaign and I looked the first couple of days to see what happened, almost instantly, like as soon as the day started, it gobbled up 20 bucks in like no time. It was like 1984 and that was it. Like the budget was just shot for the day, because the way that this particular campaign works for promoted stores is it's cost per click. So you are not paying if you make a sale, you are paying regardless of if you make a sale. So it doesn't matter. You're just paying for people to click on the link to bring them into your store, regardless of whether or not they make a purchase or not. So how much does it cost to make one of these clicks? I'm going to get into that in a minute. But what I decided to do and what they allow you to do is basically you could pick up to 5 categories in your eBay store that you want them to advertise and focus on. So I focused on the ones that are the most popular for my business and where I have the most products. So number 1 will be comic books. Number 2 would be toys. Number 3 would be books. Number 4 would be jewelry, for Mrs. Primetime. And number 5 would be entertainment memorabilia. And so I bring up this thing about the Target ads in terms of the rate, because really, if you want to spend no more than 10 bucks a day, you really should cut that in half and put it at 5 bucks. Because generally that's what I saw. This wound up running from around November 1st to November 14th, and all of the $200 was gobbled up by that time frame. But if I just thought, oh, okay, hey, I'll let it run and I'll check in at the end of the month, or I'll check in 20 days, I would have spent well over that $200. And even with this coupon or credit that they're giving me, I would still be liable for that extra. But let's take a look at what happened. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the metrics. We're going to go into and dive into some of the data here. Okay, so this is over this 2-week time frame. So take a look at this first page over here. You could see that it was bringing me in for comic books and memorabilia 10,000 impressions and 53 clicks, 17 store views, and then it tells you how many people are new to the store and tells you the click-through rate, which is less than 1%. Okay, so it's 0.5 percentage point. That's really bad in terms of a click-through rate. Okay, and that was generally the same for the other categories. If you look at the data here on the screen, the best that I got was for jewelry and watches. I got 0.8 in terms of a click-through rate, but the other ones hovered around 0.5 percentage point. Toys and hobbies, books and magazines, that brought in the most impressions. The least impressions was jewelry and entertainment memorabilia. And the most number of clicks I got was for toys and hobbies. It was 70. And that was also the most store views that I got, which was 28. The least wound up being for entertainment memorabilia, 22 clicks, 3,633 impressions, and 8 store views. Okay, so how much is this costing me when people are clicking on the store ad? So let's take a look right here and you will see generally it's costing around $1 per click. For comic books and memorabilia, it cost me $1.09 per click. It cost about $1.99 per click for books and magazines. It cost 90 cents for jewelry and watches per click. It cost 85 cents for entertainment memorabilia, And then for toys and hobbies, it costs 60 cents per click. That was the lowest one. So now, based on all of this, what are the results? What did I make in terms of money, in terms of sales from going through this whole thing? Okay, well, let's take a look at this right here. This is part of the thumbnail to the video. I got a total of 238 clicks over this 2-week campaign. And that brought me in 85 store views. That cost a total, before I ended the campaign, of $206.69. You can't make this stuff up sometimes, I swear. So now I'm going to be liable for the $6.69 part. And that's what generally happens when people give you gift cards and, you know, credits and stuff like that. They expect you're probably going to spend a little bit more over that. Okay, so I'm liable for that part, but maybe I made up for that with the sales, right? Here's the amount of sales that I made through this entire thing. Look at this. $0. $0 in sales. And it's not because I don't have good items, of course. You've been following this channel for, you know, a long time probably, and I've shown my sales. I showed them in the prior video and everything. And, you know, just today, right now, I have 11 or 12 sales that I have to send out, but none of those came from this promoted stores campaign. So, and none of them obviously came from it over the last 2 weeks for all the sales that I made. So, it's not working. It's not working. It's really a complete disgrace. Actually, it's a total failure. It does not work. That's why I say it's shocking. Like, not even one sale, nothing came out of this. Now, why is that? You know, when I was setting it up, it gives you some previews of what your ad is going to look like. And I'll show some of the previews here on the screen of what it showed me. And I've got to say, like, that does not look like something I really would want to click on as a potential buyer, you know, unless I just happen to particularly be interested maybe in one of those items that I see up there. But the advertising team has to do a way better job in terms of coming up with ads that are going to be enticing and to bring people in, to target people better and match people better to what they might want to actually purchase, because this is not working at all, at least in my example. And I will preface that, and I said this with the prior video, that I can't guarantee that the positive results I had in the prior video with promoted listings would generalize to everybody. And just like this one, I can't promise you that everybody who tries this out will get the same terrible results that I wound up getting from it. But that's why we have a comment section and people will let me know. But I've never liked a pay-per-click advertising strategy, because it is money you are spending that does not factor in whether or not you're getting results or not. Results in terms of actual sales. I'm not counting views as results. I mean, technically they are, but I'm talking about what the bottom line is that we're all interested in, which is how much money are we actually making from the advertising. All right, now let's switch gears and talk about eBay's promoted listings and how that's changing as of January 13th, 2026. Now, eBay's promoted listings is just what it sounds like. You are paying to promote a specific listing as opposed to paying to promote your entire eBay store. And there's two main ways that you could set up promoted listings within eBay. One is promoted listings standard, also known as promoted listings general, and then there's promoted listing priority. Now, with promoted listing standard or general, that's a pay for performance approach. You are only paying when somebody purchases an item after clicking through the promoted listing ad. With promoted listing priority, that is a pay per click approach where you are paying every single time somebody clicks on the ad, regardless of whether or not they make the purchase. So which one do you think that eBay prefers? Of course, eBay prefers promoted listing priority because they get the money regardless. All they have to do is set up the ad and someone clicks on it and they make money. It's not tied to a purchase. Now, in the prior video that I made, I talked about my success using the promoted listing standard approach, or that general approach, the pay per performance approach. And when I said earlier that it's the first time that I used it, what I meant by that, that's the first time that I had used it for all the items in my store for a prolonged period of time. You know, as I explained in the prior video, I had dabbled with it here and there in the past, but again, that was the first time I had really used it on such a comprehensive level. So, how eBay makes the attribution to consider something a promoted listing sale with that standard approach is very important, because you could define it very narrowly or you could make it really broad. So the way that it works, there's really two ways as of now. There's what's called a direct approach and a halo approach. So let's cover that with an example. And this is something that I sold in my eBay store yesterday for $100. So I figured it's a nice round number, this Betty Boop figure. If somebody came in, let's call him John. John comes in and clicks on Betty Boop and purchases Betty Boop through my promoted listing ad. And I set my ad rate for 3%. I'm going to pay an extra $3 above and beyond what I had already agreed to pay as being an eBay seller for my standard fees. Now, if John clicks on this link for this promoted ad for this item and decides to wait a little bit and comes back a week later, maybe he needs to wait for his paycheck to come in, and then purchases it, as long as he did that within 30 days, I'm going to still pay the $3 because eBay's rationale is the way John got to Betty Boop is through that original ad. That's how he first found out about it. Even if the next time he comes back, he came through a non-promoted ad. Doesn't matter. The first time he came through, that was the funnel. They caught him with that. That's the attribution. Now, let's say John clicks on Betty Boop. Now that's the direct approach. Now we're going to talk about the halo approach. Let's say John clicks on Betty Boop and doesn't purchase her, but he goes through my store, he's looking around, he sees another one of my promoted items, and he purchases this doll. I'm still going to pay the 3% on this doll, even though John came in through the Betty Boop link. That's how he originally came in. That's eBay's rationale, because the funnel to that doll was through Betty Boop. And they use that same approach, the direct approach and the halo approach, for making attributions for the pay-per-click model. But for there, it doesn't really matter, because you're paying no matter what for the priority approach, because you're paying every time someone clicks on the link. So let's use Betty Boop for example, and the numbers I showed earlier from the promoted stores experiment. Let's say I'm just going to give a nice round number. Let's say it's $1 a click. If someone clicked on Betty Boop 100, or people, let's say multiple people, there were 100 clicks on Betty Boop, I'm going to pay $100 if it's $1 a click. Let's say I'm not checking it, I'm not paying attention, and 200 people click on the ad. I'm going to pay $200 to try to sell a $100 item. That makes no sense. And that's why I don't suggest using the pay-per-click model unless you set up a small experiment with some specific type of item, maybe something that you had in volume where you could show that it made some sense on some level. Then I don't know, maybe in that situation it might work. But in general, for the average person, I don't suggest using a pay-per-click priority model on eBay. And I showed you earlier what happened with the promoted stores, which was a pay-per-click model. I literally made no sales. What do I care about all the other people that came in and saw my items that didn't make a purchase? All right, so with that in mind, let's talk about the two changes that are coming January 13th, 2026. And I'll put them on the screen for you just so you could see word for word what they actually said. So let's cover the first part right here. Take a look at this. All right, so the first part first change is exclusive ad placement with priority campaign. So pay per click. Campaigns using a priority strategy will get exclusive access to the first ad slot position at the top of eBay search results. This means your listings will get more visibility to help you drive greater sales velocity. So keep in mind what that means. They are saying when you get exclusive access, they want to push more people to the pay-per-click model. And that's how they're trying to lure people over there, is by promising them that top slot. So if you use promoted listing standard, the pay-per-performance model setup, you're no longer promised that top spot anymore. Is that going to make me change and go to priority listing? Absolutely not. No way. I am only going to pay if there is data that shows. eBay is going to have to convince me that you are going to make sales. That is the only thing that matters. Views do not matter. Clicks do not matter. The only thing that matters is if you are making sales, if the advertising is driving performance. But again, remember, eBay wants to get that easy money, and the easy money is pay per click. So that's why they're trying to push more people over to it. Now, they know that there's people out there who use promoted listing standard and don't want to really go off of that. So knowing that, what they are doing is they are expanding, and notice my hands are going to start going off the screen, how they make an attribution for promoted listing standard to try to capture more and more money. All right, so here's the change. Here's the big change, the biggest one of all, okay? I'm going to put this on the screen so everyone sees it word for word. Take a look at this. So updated attribution for general campaigns. So it's the standard campaign. Starting January 13th, 2026, items listed and promoted with a general strategy will use the following attribution definition when reporting sales and charging ad fees. An attributed sale will be when any buyer purchases the promoted item within 30 days of any click on the ad. The item must be promoted at the time of click and the time of sale. The seller will be charged the ad rate at the time of the sale. You still only pay when your item sells. Yeah, I only pay when the item sells, but to bring this back to the example of John earlier, so let's say John clicks on the promoted link for Betty Boop, but Josette comes in later on. She doesn't click on the promoted ad. She just clicks on a regular listing for Betty Boop, the same one, and makes the purchase. eBay is still going to charge me the promoted ad fee. And that has a lot of people scratching their head in terms of saying that makes no sense. It's like huge money grab, for eBay. And that's true. It is a money grab for eBay. I think that eBay's rationale that they are going to try to use legally if it is challenged is to say something like this. Yes, okay. So John clicked on the promoted listing for Betty Boop. He clicked on that ad. And yeah, we know that Josette came in later and purchased it. But the reason why we're going to make that attribution is because when John clicked on Betty Boop, John generated activity to that item. And that helped it move up in the algorithm so it's more available and more viewable to people like Josette, who come in and find it, even though it's not technically coming in through a promoted ad. It's just showing up more just naturally. eBay they have it in their terms of service that they could, at their own will, they could change how often your items show up in listings and where they're going to go. So they're going to say, hey, John generated more activity to Betty Boop, and that pushed it up, and that allowed Josette to come in and get it later, even though Josette didn't use a promoted listing ad link to get there. So I think that they're trying that approach. They're getting a lot of blowback from it. And while it might work legally, if it's ever challenged, in terms of public opinion with resellers, they're upset. They're angry. And I don't like it either. I really don't. And so what am I going to do once January 13th, 2026 rolls around? The answer is I don't know yet. I have to wait and see. I'm going to have to monitor. I mean, I could tell you that promoted listing standard is still working for me, and that's before these changes have come into play. So like I have 11 items right now that I have to ship out, and 7 or 8 of them sold through promoted listings. So like 70+% or so sold through promoted listings. So it's still working. Now it's not working as much as it had worked when I made the prior video, and I think the reason for that is because in the prior video, as I explained, that was the first time I was using it for my entire store. So now my entire store has gone through it for a couple of months, and so it's not like the items aren't all as fresh to the promoted listings as they were when I initially did it. And plus, I also think that eBay probably, now I don't have proof of this, but it would make sense given everything else that we know, because they keep sending me messages like, hey, you might want to promote it higher than your 3%. Well, what's a way to make me want to promote it higher is if they don't give me the same kind of results as they were before. So it's still working. It's still doing better than it had been before I used the promoted listings. But again, it's not as drastic as as an improvement as I initially saw. So I still recommend it as of now, but that's before these changes came into play. And one of the other changes that came into play after I made that video, which also could be affecting things a little bit, is that no longer is eBay putting promoted listing ads when you sort your items from lowest price to highest price, and other ways that you can manipulate the search. They're excluding it from some of those, and maybe that could because there were maybe some legal challenge to that, because I did think too that was like a little misleading for consumers. If a consumer is searching for things from lowest to highest, really the top item should be the lowest item. It should not be a promoted ad, because then the person might think that that's the lowest item and not search any further, because that's how they sorted it. So that's another change that came into play. So that just eliminated some slots where some ads could go, and that could affect performance too. But still, I still think it's worth right now doing the promoted listing standard, but set that number low. Go back to my prior video to see how I did it. So that's a basic summary of the promoted stores experiment. Huge caution with that, and my take on some of these changes coming. And again, just like a little update in terms of how things are going with promoted listing standard for me. So share your feedback down below, your thoughts on these changes and stuff, and I'll probably do another update down the road to let you know how things are going, and what I ultimately wound up doing. I'm obviously going to monitor my sales numbers really carefully, and we'll just see what happens. So I hope that you enjoyed the video, everyone, and I'll see you back at the next one. Take care.